Hey everyone, welcome back to the Corbin Report. So today, free agency officially started yesterday, Wednesday, March 12th, according to NFL.com and USA Today. It's where players can officially start signing. And then, so if you have time and I want to hear how I think your team is doing in offseason so far, sit down as this is going to be one of my longer episodes. And I'll start off with who my shocker signing is, which is a playoff quarterback to a non-playoff team from last season. Also, I'll be sharing the teams I think who are looking to win the Super Bowl and make the playoffs, and recapping some of the trades and signings so far that I think are important. Also, I'll explain why I think certain teams will or will not make the playoffs and who I think will with the current signings. So I'll start off with the teams that are making moves, improving their team in offense, defense, or all around, which includes teams like the Broncos, Bears, Redskins, Steelers, Bills, Bucks, Cardinals, Rams, and even the New England Patriots. But, as mentioned, let's start with the signing that I think is the shocker of the offseason so far, in my opinion. This playoff quarterback decided to sign with the Seattle Seahawks. It is Sam Darnold. And if he would have stayed with the Minnesota Vikings, I think they could have repeated their season and ran it back. But he decided to leave and get paid for 3 years, $100.5 million. Now the question is, are we going to see the Sam Darnold we saw last year in Minnesota, where he revived his career, or with the Jets when his career seemed to be going downhill? In his 1 year in Minnesota, he threw for 4,319 yards. He threw 361 completions out of 545 attempts with a 66.2 completion percentage. He also had 35 touchdowns and 12 interceptions. Believe it or not, he put up MVP numbers, and statistically speaking, had better numbers than MVP winner Buffalo Bills quarterback Josh Allen. We'll talk about how Josh Allen won MVP, yet quarterbacks statistically put up better numbers than him, including a quarterback who did not make the playoffs. And in Seattle, Darnold will have tight end Noah Fant, wide receiver Jackson Smith, and Jigba, Marquez Valdez-Scantling. And another question is, how will their defense do? They did just sign DeMarcus Lawrence and Ernest Jones, or re-sign. DeMarcus Lawrence decided to leave Dallas, a long-time veteran there. He signed for 3 years, $42 million, 18 guaranteed. And Ernest Jones signed an extension. That is 3 years with $15 million guaranteed for a total of $33 million. Now, out of these teams that are doing good, I mentioned one of them is looking like a contender to compete for the Super Bowl trophy. Last year, they were only 1 game away from making it to the big game. It is the Redskins. Of course, we already know they traded for Deebo Samuel, and I talked about that in my last episode. More recently, they traded for an offensive lineman in Laramie Tunsil from the Texans. To me, the Texans, that was a dumb move, as he was protecting Stroud's blind side. Now he'll be protecting Daniel's blind side. And of course, they made some moves on the defensive side of the ball. As I keep saying, it looks like they're wanting to win now and win it all. I can see them making it this year. Of course, the obvious reason is if they all stay healthy, as that's part of it along with teams that are good. On the defensive side of the ball, Javon Kinlaw from the Jets and 49ers signs with them. Did I mention they are looking to win now? Kinlaw had 27 tackles solo last season. Now onto a team that's looking to make the playoffs after having high expectations last year and not meeting them are the Chicago Bears. The Bears get offensive linemen and trades a veteran and young player to help protect Caleb Williams. Something that I've heard from fans and friends that Bears haven't had offensive linemen in a while, and now they have some to protect their franchise quarterback. They got a veteran from the Chiefs and Joe Thuney. In my opinion, the Chiefs lost one of their great players. I also did forget Ben Johnson was the former Lions offensive coordinator and now the head coach. He is improving the Bears a lot, and I mean it. They also traded for Rams offensive lineman Jonah Jackson. Like I said, they'll have people to protect Williams. This offense will be even more dangerous, especially if they're able to keep Keenan Allen. And for the trade, both trades, the Bears gave up a 2026 fourth-round pick for one of them, and for another one, a 2025 sixth-round draft pick for Jonah Jackson. I'd just say they need to work on their defense. And Falcons released Grady Jarrett, and he signed with the Bears for $43.5 million for 3 years, which is starting to improve the Bears' defense. He had 30 solo tackles and 2.5 sacks. I say they still need help. Could they be signing someone, or is there someone in the draft they want? Here's another team spending money, well, also with a new coach, and they did not make the playoffs last year. It is the New England Patriots. And yes, I'm a fan of the team, but also I think not as a fan, a sports person, these moves they are making are smart, and I do feel like they can make the playoffs. Harold Landry, a defensive player, was cut from the Titans, one of their best, if not their best, defensive players, reuniting with Mike Vrabel. In his career, Landry has 250 solo tackles, 3 forced fumbles, and 50.5 sacks. I could say this could be one of their leaders on defense with Christian Gonzalez, who was one of the players who's been doing good the last few games or years, as long as he's been with the team, proven to be a leader. Maybe Landry is that leader they need on defense as well. Also for New England, they signed Milton Williams from the Eagles. He just won a Super Bowl. He signed for 4 years, $104 million. I just don't know much about him, but I would assume he takes up so much space. No, I'm not trying to say anything negative, just big player means take up space, causing him to be double teamed by the offensive lineman and freeing up a defender. And according to ESPN, he had 1 forced fumble, 5 sacks, and 11 solo tackles. They also get someone else to be on the opposite side of Christian Gonzalez and Carlton Davis from the Lions. He signs there 3 years, $60 million, pairing up with Christian Gonzalez, as I just said. He had 2 interceptions, 42 solo tackles. Davis. They were just loading up on defense, and it was already solid, and they're making it stronger. Hopefully, as a fan, this attracts people on the offensive side of the ball to play with Drake May and Joe Milton. Not only that, I forgot to mention, they even signed Robert Spillane, who played for the Raiders and Steelers, who could also be that interior leader. He had 91 solo tackles, 2 sacks, and 67 assisted tackles. He's a veteran and has been around for some time. Looks like this defense is getting some household names finally and some well-known players, or at least I would think well-known. I don't think, Milton, I just don't know him. I know Spillane, people know Davis a little bit. And then Harold Landry, pretty well-known. They did lose their center, Andrews, so I don't know what they're going to do now. Maybe they're going to draft someone because the center position is important as they snap the ball to the quarterback. So this defense is looking like strong defense, and it kind of makes sense for Mike Vrabel as he was a defensive player. So maybe he's trying to build that defense as defenses win championships, go from there, and then they have Drake May, and then just also they can also I forgot to mention, I didn't put this in here, but I remember they did sign Morgan Moses, former offensive tackle, to help protect May. Maybe they're looking to add another lineman after losing the center. And also I feel like they need to draft a receiver. Maybe they'll do that in the draft along with the center. Because they don't have a household receiver. I feel that, and then they'll have a complete team. And then another AFC team. This team, they did make the playoffs. And this year with the moves they're making, I can see them actually not just winning their first playoff game, but winning a second one and making a run in the playoffs. It is the Denver Broncos. They bolster their defense. Last year, I said they didn't have a defense. They just had one player in Pat Surtain. And they still made the playoffs, and I would say that is thanks to their offense. They now have a defense and one with household names like 2 49ers players going there in safety. Talanoa Hufanga on a 3-year deal, up to $45 million and $20 million guaranteed at signing, and linebacker Dre Greenlaw for 3 years, $35 million. He also played 5 games that had 47 catches, 365 yards. It's tight end Evan Ingram going to Denver. They lost their running back Javonte Williams to the Cowboys. To me, that would tell me they are looking to draft running back or sign one. I can see them competing for the division or winning it. Now with Surtain and Greenlaw and Hufanga, they bring that aggressive and toughness to Denver. And Evan Ingram would be a reliable tight end if he can stay healthy. Now moving on to this playoff team. They lost their backup quarterback and starting running back. So they still need a quarterback. But even with that, they are still making moves and looking good moves with moves they're making. I could see them competing for their division and even possibly winning it. It's the Pittsburgh Steelers losing backup Justin Fields to the Jets, where he reunites with Garrett Wilson, where they play together at Ohio State. Last year, Fields had 1,106 yards and 5 touchdowns and 1 interception. It's good for the Jets. They get a decent quarterback. I just don't know how they're going to do when they lost offensive linemen. Defense, I don't know how that's going to be. I don't see them doing that so good. And also, Jets have that stereotype. It's just not that good. The Steelers did get DK Metcalf in a trade for a 2025 second-round pick. And I thought Metcalf would have went to the Raiders because Pete Carroll and Geno Smith. Now they have 2 number 1 receivers in Pickens and Metcalf. They also have Calvin Austin and Pat Freiermuth. This offense is dangerous. And if they keep Russ, they lost Fields, but they keep Russ, it'd be awesome. They lost Najee Harris. Make the playoffs again. Metcalf had 66 receptions for 992 yards and 5 touchdowns. So who's going to be the quarterback? Well, I was talking with Dad. It looks like they're going to draft one. Not a lot of teams need quarterbacks. It's the ones in the beginning of the draft. Steelers are down, and they need one. They're down further in the draft. They'll need one. And I thought DK Metcalf, I could see him going to the Ravens, Steelers. Those were the 2 teams. And I thought if you signed the Ravens, it'd be a super team. But now Steelers just makes them, I say, a little better. Got some aggressive receivers, as my brother would say. Also, on the defensive side of the ball, Darius Slay signed with the Steelers, former Eagles and Lions cornerback/safety. And like I said, the Steelers did lose their running back, so what the heck? I don't know what they're doing, They lost Najee Harris to the Chargers. Also, Mike Williams leaves Pittsburgh and returns to LA, joining Harris. Chargers now have 2 receivers and need to upgrade their defense. They do have Dobbins, but he's a free agent. Harris's contract or deal is 1 year, $9.25 million, and he had 263 carries for 1,043 yards and 6 touchdowns last year. The Chargers also re-signed Khalil Mack, and Dan Moore of the Steelers signs with the Titans. So going back to the Steelers, said I feel like they can compete for their division, and I forgot to mention, they did get a quarterback as of March 13th. Mason Rudolph decided to come back to Pittsburgh. He can be a starter or a backup. And I still think they're going to look to draft a quarterback or maybe sign one. And something I noticed is Titans like adding former Steelers players like Bud Dupree, Mason Rudolph, and now Dan Moore. Moore signed for 4 years, $82 million, $50 guaranteed, and in 1 year will make $30 million according to NFL.com. Excuse me. Thanks for staying with me. As I said, this is going to be a longer episode than normal. And also another playoff team that made some changes are the Buffalo Bills. They did cut Von Miller, and they replaced him with Joey Bosa from the Chargers. This is smart by the Bills. Bosa only had 5 more total tackles than Miller and 1 less sack. But from the amount of time spent in the league, this is a good move as Bosa hasn't been in the league 10 years, while Miller has been in the league for about 14. Also, Josh Allen signs a big contract with Buffalo at 6 years, $330 million, and $250 million guaranteed. My question, though, is what are the Bills going to do for their defense other than Bosa? They did cut Miller to save money, but then they signed Allen to the big deal, and I still feel like they need some household receiver names. They do have Keon Coleman, who was a rookie last year. I think their top receiver. Still feel like they need some more. I know they signed some, but I still think they need someone that just can help them and help attract the defense and open up that offense. As I was looking up Allen's stats, I realized Geno Smith threw for more yards and had a better completion percentage than Allen, who won the MVP. Allen threw for 3,731 yards for 307 completions out of 483 attempts for a completion percentage of 63.6. Also threw for 28 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. Now this team, don't know if anyone expects this unless you're probably a fan. I actually think they're doing pretty good and they can make the playoffs and even win their division, all the moves happening and everything. It's the Arizona Cardinals. They did sign Jacoby Brissett. He'll be the backup to Kyler Murray, and he can start when need be, and he's proven he's reliable no matter where he plays. Eagles' Josh Sweat, defense player Josh Sweat, left Philly for Arizona after winning the Super Bowl. And maybe this might help Arizona get over the hump and make the playoffs. It is for 4 years, $76.4 million. He had 27 tackles solo and 8 sacks and a total of 41. I put sacks, but I think I meant tackles. Another team doing good or okay, or I say good, but it seems like they're staying the same, are the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They did re-sign Chris Godwin to a 3-year deal, $45 million guaranteed, $66 million total. As we know, he'll be deep down throughout slot, get those balls no one else wants to catch. And they added Hassan Reddick for 1 year and $14 million, who also just won a Super Bowl with the Eagles, or he's played for the Eagles, one or both. I had to double check that. According to ESPN, he only played 5 games. Oh, this is Godwin, sorry. Only played 5 games, had 50 catches for 576 yards, 5 touchdowns. And also signing Reddick will help their defense, with Levante David saying they have made the playoffs the last few years. Maybe they like who they have and believe in each other to go far. Let's test the patience and chemistry. Maybe they might go far and make the NFC Championship. Who knows? And goes to show being patient pays off. Make a little moves here and there, but patience. Now moving on to teams doing okay. When I say okay, making decent signings or not making many moves at all. So kind of like the Bucs staying the same, but not as much. I would say are the Rams, Ravens, Vikings, Raiders, and Saints. And yes, I know I talked about some of them already. Keep in mind, I know I may have left some out because these are the ones that stood out to me that I've seen. And in case you haven't heard already, Devontae Adams was released by the Jets and he signed with the LA Rams. His deal is 2 years, $46 million. This is good by the Rams, but I feel like they made a mistake releasing Cooper Kupp instead of keeping him with Puka and Adams. That would be a dangerous offense with veteran Stafford and this young Rams defense who proved they are legitimate last season. Despite playing for 2 different teams last year, Adams still had 1,063 yards, 85 catches, and 141 targets, according to ESPN. I said Kupp should stay and they shouldn't have released him. With him, Puka, Tutu, Kyren, that defense, and a veteran quarterback, good team. Should I say they need offensive line or they'll be okay with who they have? They also re-signed Jimmy Garoppolo to be the backup. He's won a Super Bowl, and he's been a starter and backup, and this is wise for the Rams. Some places I can see Kupp going are the AFC North, whether it's Steelers or Ravens. Something I was thinking about while writing this, a dark horse would be to actually go to the Indianapolis Colts. I don't know why I would go there after they just signed Daniel Jones, but who knows? Or even possibly maybe he stays in the NFC West. It's Arizona. You got Murray, Marvin Harrison Jr., Trey McBride, James Conner. Who knows? Now on to a team who took a former NFC player and is looking to get back in the playoffs. It is the Las Vegas Raiders. Thanks for staying tuned. I know it's been a while. Quarterback Geno Smith was traded to the Raiders for a 2025 third-round pick. At first, this was a shock, but then when you think about it, it makes sense because Pete Carroll is now the head coach of the Raiders. Smith had 21 touchdowns and 15 interceptions. He completed 407 passes out of 578 attempts for a 70.4 completion percentage and threw for 4,320 yards. He has proven he can make the playoffs with a decent defense and offense, and so maybe the Raiders are looking to make the playoffs and see what they can do. Smith threw for more yards than Allen and didn't make the playoffs. I think this shows that the Bills needs a receiver, and I thought Metcalf would have gone to Las Vegas. Also, the Raiders got a veteran running back from Miami in Raheem Mostert. The Raiders now have a starting running back and quarterback with Brock Bowers, an offensive line veteran player. I feel like they will draft a receiver in free agency and some defensive players. Mostert is a household name and has been to a Super Bowl. Another defensive player they signed is someone who played on a team that wasn't that great. It's safety Jeremy Chin from the Carolina Panthers. And when looking at pin stats, he actually did a lot better than I thought. So he might be that aggressive player to pair with Crosby that the Raiders need on defense. He actually, like I said, did better than I thought. He was involved on the Panthers defense. He had a total of 117 tackles. And that's a lot for a safety. 73 solo and 44 assisted. 2 sacks, 1 forced fumble, 2 fumble recoveries, and an interception. Also, veteran Max Crosby signs a 3-year extension with the Raiders, which made him the highest paid non-quarterback player for a while. short-lived. It's $106.5 million with $91.5 million guaranteed. He had 28 tackles and 7.5 sacks, according to ESPN. But, then another AFC defensive player was like, hold on, me and my team can do better. Watch this. The Cleveland Browns and Myles Garrett reached an extension of 4 years, $40 million per year, $123 million guaranteed, making him the highest paid non-quarterback player. For these two, I wanted to look up stats and say stuff, but there isn't much to say other than the obvious. Their game speaks for itself. They are difference makers. Now on to a team who I think had a solid defense last year, and their team was going to be okay, and then it failed my expectations, others' expectations. It is the New Orleans Saints. They did just sign a veteran and Super Bowl winner in safety, Justin Reed, which is replacing Marshawn Lattimore, who left to the Redskins last year. This helps their defense only get better. Now, only if their offense can stay healthy. This signing is for 3 years, $31.5 million. He had 87 total tackles, 61 solo, and 2 interceptions. Now, this team made the playoffs and was hoping to make the Super Bowl, but did not make it there. They added a veteran receiver who made the Super Bowl. I'll probably tell them how to get there. I don't know if I'd say how or help them get there. It is DeAndre Hopkins signs with the Baltimore Ravens. We all know what he can do with the Texans, and he did not. I didn't really watch him that much after the Chiefs last year, but this just gives Lamar Jackson more weapons with the Ravens. And after he didn't make it, or he made it after not making it, he finally made it to the Super Bowl, but was unable to get a ring with the Chiefs, who have been making it there almost every year. And the Ravens do look like a team to make it to the playoffs and have a chance, and he chose to go there, which is wise for him. So now Jackson has Flowers, likely Andrews, Henry, Bateman, and Hopkins. And maybe they'll draft a safety or cornerback in the draft and help them defense improve that. Makes it a high-powered, dangerous offense there. Now, this playoff team, they may have lost their quarterback, but they keep their running back. The Vikings, Aaron Jones re-signs 2 years, $20 million. He ran for 1,130 yards off of 255 carries. He also didn't just run, he ran, but also caught out of the backfield. Had 408 receiving yards, 51 catches with a total of 7 touchdowns. Now the question is, with all these offensive weapons, who will be the quarterback? Is it going to be J.J. McCarthy, who they drafted last year, and then he got injured, or are they going to sign someone, or what's going to happen? Now this team, I don't know what they're doing. It's kind of interesting. The Indianapolis Colts, they signed Daniel Jones, and according to the team's website, he was released by the Giants last year. Then the Vikings signed him to the active roster after he made the Vikings practice squad. The Colts did add depth to their defense, though, which is good. But even though they added defense, they lose their offense. So I don't know what they're doing here. You sign a quarterback, but then you lose your offensive lineman. So are you trying not to protect your quarterback? What are you doing here? They did sign on the defense former 49ers and Vikings DB Shavarius Ward and Cameron Bynum. And then Bynum's deal is 4 years, $60 million. Ward's is more, 3 years, up to $60 million, $35 million guaranteed, and a $20 million signing bonus, according to NFL.com. Ward had 54 total tackles, but only played 5 games, and Bynum had 96 tackles and 3 interceptions. And like I said, a few Colts players left for Minnesota, as we'll get into that in a little bit down the line. Now on to the Vikings. They lose their cornerback in Bynum, but they gain a defensive lineman and linebacker. Like I said, who will the Vikings have at quarterback? They did draft McCarthy last year. He got injured. Sam Darnold went off. They did get Jonathan Allen, a defensive player. The Vikings also add Javon Hargrave from the Niners and Colts offensive linemen, 2 of them, Will Fries and Ryan Kelly. Smart by them, bad by Indiana. These are the players that Indiana lost. And, thanks for listening, guys. We're almost done. So the Chargers, they're a team doing okay, another team, despite losing some people. And they also have some returning faces and new people. I would say they're looking to compete and build on the draft. They lost Bosa and receiver Joshua Palmer, but they got running back Najee Harris. And Mike Williams returns to pair with Ladd McConkey. Then here are some teams not doing good, which include both Super Bowl teams, the winner and the loser, 49ers, Colts, and Texans. The Eagles look like they won't be making the Super Bowl because their defense, pretty much most of them have left to other teams. Also, their backup quarterback, Kenny Pickett, heads to the Browns on a trade for Dorian Thompson-Robinson. To me, the Eagles are falling apart after they won it all. Now, on the AFC, the Texans are losing players and getting players. They need to get Christian Kirk, who had 379 yards, 47 targets, 27 catches, and 1 touchdown. They got him in a trade with the Jags. A few years ago, he was a receiver that was doing good and hasn't been doing great, but he can produce. And they got him for a 2026 7th-round pick. Looks like they'll be losing a few receivers, even though they got one. They will have Nico Collins along with Dalton Schultz and now Kirk. They might be losing Diggs and Dell. Kirk is a deep threat, though. They did trade their offensive lineman Kenyon Green to the Eagles for safety C.J. Gardner-Johnson, who had 35 solo tackles and 6 interceptions. The good news about the Texans is their offense may not be doing the best, as in they're losing their offensive line, but they're stacking their defense. They're just not helping their offense, Now, another team that's like the Eagles, who are just losing players, seems left and right to other teams, it is the San Francisco 49ers. I just don't see them doing good next year. I want to say the same with the Chiefs, but when it's Patrick Mahomes, you can't count him out. Lastly, the Colts. They help their defense, but also hurt their offense. As I mentioned, you sign a backup quarterback in Daniel Jones, but you lose offensive linemen. So who's going to protect him or Richardson? It's like the moves the Texans are making, the Colts are trying to keep up. And then here's some other signings or trades that I didn't mention. Lions replace Carlton Davis with DJ Reed from the Jets, who had 52 solo tackles. Diami Brown leaves the Redskins for Jaguars. He should have stayed, but I think he left so he can compete for the number 1 spot. He had 30 catches for 308 yards. Also, Atlanta signs Leonard Floyd, helping them with their defense. The questions are, where will Aaron Rodgers and Cooper Kupp end up? Now on for my early predictions. Here are my 14 teams I think will make the playoffs with all the trades and signings so far. The NFC is a little easier than the AFC, and here are the division winners for the NFC. We have the Cardinals, Buccaneers, Redskins, and Bears, and then a wild card, Vikings, Lions, and Packers. And then for the AFC, it's a little tougher. Division winners, I have Bills, Ravens, Texans, and Broncos. And then for the wild cards, Steelers, Raiders, and Patriots. Of course, like I said, these are my early predictions. And then for suggestions and to listen to more episodes, be sure to follow the Corbin Report on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and LinkedIn. Thanks for listening to the Corbin Report. Stay tuned for the next episode, as we'll see if it's going to be March Madness, more NFL news, basketball, or even hockey. Thanks, guys. Bye.